What is identity abuse? That's a very common question that I hear, likely because when I introduce myself, I say, hi, I'm Pastor Elaine. I teach people about identity abuse because no one is born with low self-esteem. And I let them ponder that for a moment. And when they realize nobody really is born with low self-esteem, that it had to come from somewhere, then they'll say, well, what is identity abuse? And the way that I like to define it is when you receive external information that damages your sense of self, and you begin to believe it as true because it feels true. So external information that damages the sense of self. And if we think about the word identity, having to kind of define that, it's really the self-perception. Honestly, our identity is given to us by God, and we have an identity that He created, but that can be damaged. Our sense of our perception of that can be damaged. And there's 4 different ways that it can be damaged. The first one is the one that I generally call identity abuse, which is somebody just saying something boldly to you that's damaging. You're stupid. You're not as good as your siblings. Why can't you be better? You're inadequate. Just a bold-faced statement that's an attack against who you are. And the second is an assault, which is a trauma of some sort, like surviving war or rape or something that's very violent, and it damages really your sense of humanity even sometimes. Who am I and what does this all mean? And then the third is neglect. It's really being neglected by not having your sense of self attended to. So this is children who have been neglected physically and emotionally, where who you are is not validated, especially for children if they're not ever asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? If you could be anything you want, what would you be? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? And just validating who they are and being able to give them that opportunity to express the truth of who they are. And people who've been, abandoned in relationships, that's also a struggle that it impacts their sense of value and their sense of self. The last one is perception. It's perceived. This often is seen in older siblings. When a younger sibling comes along and the older sibling may perceive that they're no longer as loved or cared about or valuable as the new baby. And this can also happen in blended families. So there's that perceived impact on identity, watching other people go through violence. So even in the state of California, they have regulations about child witnesses of domestic violence, because the impact on the children, even if the children are not actually experiencing the violence, they're witnessing the violence. The long-term impact of that growing into adulthood is the inability to receive truth, even in light of practical, concrete proof. So you can give them concrete proof of something and they can't believe it. Now, I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you've dressed well and you've gone to an event and somebody comes up to you and says, wow, you look really nice. And intellectually, you'll say, well, I put all this effort into making myself look better, but I don't feel like I look nice. I can't receive what they're saying because it doesn't feel true. People will say, wow, you sing really well, or you're really smart, or a wide variety of things. And the inability to receive that truth, even though there's proof of that truth. And it shows up in the mental health world, which is where my original frustration came in, that as a therapist and a pastor, I would have these people getting stuck. And I'm like, why can't they make progress? Why do they go this far and they get stuck? And it was during that meditative process that those 2 words came up, identity abuse. And I realized that they were believing the lie because it felt true, and by believing the lie, they couldn't believe the truth. They physiologically felt it impossible to believe the truth, and so therefore they rejected it. And by coming in and saying, okay, let's identify the lie. Let's identify the lie that you believe, and then say, you get to choose. You get to choose to believe the truth. And coming at it from an academic standpoint or a critical thinking standpoint, an analytical standpoint, instead of an emotional standpoint, gave them the freedom to make a choice, to choose what is true. And it does take practice. I mean, philosophically, it's simple, but putting it into practice, it does take energy and effort, because you're really defying something that feels true to you, and saying, I'm going to no longer believe this thing. But I'm happy to say that it works, and I'm proof of that in my own life. And I know that it works for you, because the truth does set us free.